Welcome back, hunters one and all, to another Top 5 Tuesday. My name is Xalest, or Alex, whichever one you prefer, and I hope you are all enjoying the wonderful fall festival that we are having in Monster Hunter World right now, filled with fun-loving pumpkins and new Gathering Hub styles and new Palico outfits and new Poogie outfits and an interesting, to say the least, new Handler outfit and all the other goodies, including this rather sexy-looking new layered armor set that I'm sporting right now. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going over my top 5 picks for the best weapons, or I should say my favorite weapons in Monster Hunter World, because as you may know, all the weapons in Monster Hunter World are viable, and it's basically just up to your playstyle. Quick trigger warning. As always, this is entirely up to opinion, especially this episode where I just prefaced it with every weapon is viable. But this is my list based on my opinion, in which case you might have your own separate list which differs from mine, even though that would mean it's probably wrong.
I am a slow learner.
And Beyblading their way into our number 5 spot, we have the dual blades, and there really is something to be said about the whole death by 1,000 paper cuts style of fighting. If you are looking to be a hybrid ninja hunter in Monster Hunter World, then the dual blades are definitely the weapon for you. As soon as you activate Demon Mode and start unleashing a wild flurry of attacks with Demon Dance, it is a very, very satisfying feeling. Almost as satisfying as jumping off a ledge and Beyblading down Devil Joe's back. And with the new Bird on a Stick or Q-tip dual blades that we just got with the Harvest update, skyrocketing to my number 1 favorite dual blades in the game solely based on look alone, my passion for the dual blades has just gotten quite the boost, however not enough to bring it any higher than the number 5 spot on this list. This is mainly due to the fact that you're really only pulling off 1 or 2 moves in the entire moveset, that being the Demon Dance or the Archdemon Dance, depending on which mode you're in, and, you know, the occasional spin move with B and so on, but they're somewhat of a repetitive weapon, which leaves them at the number 5 spot on this list.
This one here is mine. Ha! Big gun doesn't make a big man.
If you are a hunter that feels the need to compensate for other areas that may be lacking, then the Greatsword is definitely the place you should begin. It takes our number 4 spot because it is a gigantic fucking sword, and I don't think you can get much better than that. The Greatsword is basically described as simple yet powerful. Its top 3 moves in order,
Hi guys,
if I had to
join?
list them, would probably be True Charge Slash, True Charge Slash, True Charge Slash, which is a massive tongue twister, and you should try saying it 5 times as fast as you can sometime. This move, in which you use the momentum of your swing to essentially vault over yourself and swing again, is the bread and butter of this weapon. And you'd think it'd get just as old as the Dual Blades Demon Dance, however, for some reason it just doesn't. One other greatsword move worth mentioning is probably the Shoulder Batch, with which you can use to charge straight through any hit that a monster can throw at you. Bitch! Not to mention that you can equip a rocket-powered greatsword called the Wyvern Ignition that you see me using right here, which is hands down the best greatsword in the game, and probably up there with the best weapons in the game. With all these great traits, along with some incredible final kill cams, you might be wondering why it's only number 4 on the list, and the real reasons are that it's simply just somewhat difficult for the new casual player to pick up, since it is somewhat of a heavy-hitting weapon, but very slow-hitting weapon. And on top of that, the only other real reason is that there are 3 other weapons in the game that I find just more fun to use. I guess it could just be my playstyle, but, you know, my list.
Bring your pretty face to my eye! Now I'm coming!
Can't decide between an axe and a sword? Well, do I have the solution for you. The Switch Axe. Equally as much a sword as an axe, and you can fluidly switch in between the two. While in axe mode, you sport a combo that can be looped infinitely as long as you have stamina, which can be quite satisfying to do. After charging up enough power to go into sword mode, you can unleash a flurry of fluid attacks that can be quite damaging to the monster, and finally finishing it all off with a huge discharge of explosive energy into it, either stationary on the ground, or you can feel free to climb on top of the monster and shove the sword into its face and do it. Either way, it is a very incredibly feels-good move to pull off.
Wow.
The biggest perk about the Switch Axe is that it just feels really good to use. It feels fluid and smooth when you get the hang of it. And, of course, it is one of the more technical weapons of Monster Hunter, so it can be a little difficult to get the hang of it first, but all in all, definitely give this a try if you haven't already, because it is just a very fun weapon to use, all in all. Well, I'm gonna carve me a tail. Thank you very much.
No, I really wish I had my hammer.
Hammer?
Quite unique. It was made from this special metal from the heart of a dying star. And when I spun it really, really fast, it gave me the ability to fly.
You rode a hammer.
No, I didn't ride the hammer.
The hammer rode you on your back.
No. I used to spin it really fast, and it would pull me off
Oh my god. The hammer pulled you off.
the ground. It would pull me off the ground up into the air, and I would fly. Every time I threw it, it would always come back to me.
Sounds like you had a pretty special and intimate relationship with this hammer, and that losing it was almost comparable to losing a loved one.
It's a nice way of putting it.
I had a very hard time choosing between the last two on this list and deciding which one would go first and which one would go second, because I hold both very dear to my heart, but I ended up going with the hammer as the number 2 choice. The hammer was the very first weapon that I mained in Monster Hunter World, and so I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but for good reason. While it lacks the ability to cut tails, it is definitely more than proficient at breaking parts, KOing monsters, and taking names. It is definitely a simple enough weapon for the beginner to pick up, and I knew I was instantly in love as soon as I saw that jumping attack that it does for the very first time. So yeah, what else could you really ask for? Oh, what's that? You want to beat the brains out of any monster that happens to fall over? Oh, well, the hammer has that covered too. So yeah, those are the main reasons that I'm putting the hammer at the number 2 spot on the list. And I do feel kinda bad putting it at the number 2 and not the number 1, because it was my first main, but after a lot of thinking and internal suffering, I ended up having to go with the second weapon I mained as the number 1 spot on the list for today. Sorry, hammer.
It's treason, then.
And we actually do have one honorable mention for the list today, and that goes to the hunting horn. No, I'm serious. I actually enjoy the hunting horn. I really love the concept of, since I love the hammer so much, basically a musical hammer that you can both use to crush skulls and play songs that'll buff your entire team. The only reason it didn't make it onto the actual list is because, well, I'm kind of a scrub with it. I feel like if I actually spent some more time using it and actually got to mastering it, it would probably make its way onto this list, snuffing out the dual blades and maybe even creeping up a little higher, but until that time comes, it's gonna sit here on the honorable mention spot. And finally, soaring in at our number 1 spot on the list today, we have the Insect Glaive. The second weapon I mained in Monster Hunter World shortly after I fought Legiana for the first time with a hammer and got utterly wrecked because I could never hit her because she was always flying. So I decided, hey, I can fly too if I use the insect glaive, and thus a new legacy was born. There is just something so satisfying about pole vaulting into the air and then spinning and gliding through the air so gracefully as you perform insane spinning combos while mounting monsters 3, 4, even 5 times in a single hunt. It took just one hunt after switching to the insect glaive to defeat Legiana, and thus made every flying monster after that much easier than fighting them with a hammer from the ground. And again, I really wanted to put the hammer at the #1 spot on the list, but in the end I just couldn't deny how utterly unique, adaptable, and just awesome the insect glaive is. Whether the monster's on the ground or in the air, the insect glaive has got you covered. So that is our list for today, guys. Feel free, as always, to leave your list in the comments down below, as well as any suggestions for future top 5s that you'd like to see. Also, leave a like if you did enjoy, and subscribe if you haven't already, because every little bit counts. I've been Xalest, or Alex, whichever one you prefer. I hope to see you again in the next video, but for now, so long.